Hello, and thank you for joining me. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about sales team motivation. It's a very interesting topic that comes up regularly among a lot of our clients here at Exactly Corporation. And I speak to the VPs of sales and chief revenue officers from across the globe. And an ongoing challenge they have is they know they've got some rock stars up at the top of the organization, but they're not sure if they're getting full value out of every member of the sales team, and they don't know how they can get their attention, get them moving, getting higher quota attainment, and getting more out of them. So I wanted to share a few ideas on this, a few ways you can measure it, a few ways you can analyze it, and even a few tricks you could try and get just that extra 5% out of your sales team. A lot of the work that I'm going to be talking about comes from Exactly's work as a corporation over the last 11 and a half or so years. We've been able to slowly build up an amazing client base of organizations that we can then go back to, pull their data, pull their behaviors, and use that to build out a complete picture. The idea of this from Exactly is going into over 870 companies and finding out what worked and what didn't work in any given incentive plan, looking at sales team performance over time, looking at sales team performance based in different industries, and any other possible permutation of the data set so that we can then turn around and share that information with our client base. Exactly is a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. You can see us at XTLY if you want to learn more. So what's my goal? The goal of any organization, how can we improve sales results and employee performance through incentives? That's what Exactly provides. We are a sales compensation management software provider in the sales performance management space. So we have always looked at how incentives can drive performance. But even when you think you've launched and released the greatest compensation plan, suddenly you have motivation issues. You're looking around and you see that you've still got reps sitting at their desk, they're reading the paper, they're checking this time of year fantasy football scores, and they don't seem to be that eager to go out and close the next deal. And you're thinking, well, I've built a compensation plan. Why isn't my team more engaged? Guess what? You're not alone. Gallup Corporation does an annual global survey of the workplace, and they constantly find that there are problems of employee engagement. In the most recent one that I was looking at, only 13% of employees across the whole corporation were truly engaged. 63% were pretty much just taking up space, and 24% are actively disengaged. This means they are looking for work. They are doing whatever they can, as the classic line from Office Space says, do just enough not to get fired. That's what you need to worry about. This is the challenge that all organizations are facing. So we build out an incentive plan, right? Again, this shouldn't be a problem with sales. Sales is the one group that has a very specific task. They have a quota. They have a compensation plan that pays them for achieving or hopefully overachieving that quota. Why is it that the incentive plan doesn't work to drive that engagement? Why is it the incentive plan failing to motivate your sales team? Well, first problem, a lot of people have a bad habit of overcomplicating the compensation plan. When you first build out the plan, you just build out a comp plan that pays you to bring in deals. So it's revenue-based. Well, then someone says, we want revenue, but we also want some net new customers instead of just upselling to our existing customers. They add a second measure for net new customers. Then someone notices there's a problem with churn. We're selling to people that leave, so we add a retention side of that. Oh, then the CFO comes in and says, revenue's great, but if we don't get our profits under control, we're going to have problems. So you add a margin measure to the compensation plan. Then the product team shows up and they've got a new product that they want to cross-sell across everybody. So suddenly we add another measure for upselling or cross-selling a new product. Well, we looked at the data and we found that whenever you go beyond 3 measures in an incentive plan, overall performance drops. You start losing the motivation to hit everything because it's confusing. It's hard to chase every single one of the targets. It's hard to focus on any one thing or 2 things. And it basically changes the entire flavor of the organization, and you stop getting the motivational factors you need. Now, what's the follow-on to that? This comes from this question of team selling that's been going on for a long time. In any given organization, it takes a lot of people to sell. And the same side on the buyer side, we're seeing 5 to 6 people involved in any purchase decision. On the selling side, we have seen 25% of Exactly's customers pay 20 or more people on a single deal. Now, you might ask, how can that happen? Well, think about it. If you have your account manager closing the deal, and then their manager gets credit for that, and the manager's director gets credit for that, and the vice president gets credit for that, well, I'm at 4 right now. But then maybe you have sales engineers or solutions consultants. So the sales engineer assigned to the deal got credit along with their manager, their director, and their VP. Well, now we're at 8. And I haven't even touched into maybe somebody from a business development, lead generation team getting credit, perhaps even somebody who works trade shows and events getting credit, business development and partner marketing getting credit. And all of a sudden, you've got a ton of people getting paid. Now, how does this reduce motivation? Well, typically because the CFO is putting a cap on what percentage of revenue is going to get paid out, which means the more people you pay, you have to spread the peanut butter even thinner. The less money involved in the deal, the less value the sales team sees to it. Again, you reduce the motivation. After that, what do we see? Playing favorites. Now, I can talk about playing favorites and how territories are built, playing favorites on how quotas are negotiated, playing favorites based on some people have a higher salary than others, and it's just on their negotiation skills, which arguably is something important to a sales rep. But we were looking at gender pay issues in the marketplace, and one of the things we discovered was that women actually have a higher quota attainment than men. We found the average quota attainment by women was 70%, whereas the average quota attainment by men was 67%. Now, you would think that that higher quota attainment would translate itself to a higher average total compensation. Unfortunately, you would be wrong. What we found is the women's average total compensation was only 83% of the men. Someone's playing favorites with the comp plan. So that your top performers are not getting paid the same as mid-tier performers. That's a demotivator. That's telling somebody not to try as hard going into the future. So what do we end up with when we start putting all these demotivating factors into the comp plan? You get what we call the frozen middle. If you've got a normal curve of sales reps and some are in that A column, which means they're poor performers, maybe they're new or maybe they're somebody you need to push out. And then you've got your top performers over there in the C column, which we want to retain. Those are our rock star reps, the ones we can always count on to bring in business. And then we have the frozen middle. And how do we get the frozen middle to improve? We want to shift their curve. So like I said, column A, we need to fix or get rid of them. Column B, we want to shift them to the right. And column C, we want to retain. So let's take it to that next step. Now let's try to motivate these reps to get a little bit more out of them. I started this conversation by discussing the fact that Exactly Corporation is involved in incentive compensation management solutions. So guess what? I'm a firm believer that incentives do work. These are 3 academic research articles that looked at how did incentive plans drive performance. Locke did some work on it where across a series of studies, he found that incentives drove a 30% productivity increase. Strajkovic and Luthans found a 17%. And Condley looked at 64 different studies and found incentives drove a 22% increase in performance. I put this up here just as a reminder. At the end of the day, the incentives do work, but how you manage the incentives is going to give you this variation in payouts. So first thing you need with a good incentive plan, you need continuous communication. The reps need a simple dashboard that they can go into, open up their laptop, open up their phone, and where they can get any sort of feedback on how they're doing, any sort of guidance of what they should be doing. They need contests and gamification. This is where leaderboards come into play, so they know where they stand. People respond to, hold it, I'm in 4th place, I want to move up to 3rd place. People respond to contests that say, I want to go, if I close the next 5 deals faster this month, I've got a chance to say go have a weekend retreat with my significant other, or I might get a bottle of scotch, or I might get double club credit if I'm going to do sales club next year. So this continuous communication of how they're doing and where they fall is going to have an impact on you. So you cannot leave them out of it. Reps can't just assume that when they get their paycheck, that's going to be the incentive. You have to tell them they earn the incentive long before it shows up with after-tax dollars in their wallet. Also, remember when I talked about over-crediting? Focus on those who have line of sight. By line of sight, I mean these are the people that actually made the deal happen. The more you spread this out, the less incentive there is. If you give a commission or a bonus check to somebody who had really no impact on closing the deal, it doesn't drive their behavior, and it dilutes the value of the incentives you give to others. We found the most successful mixes are the account executive and a solutions sales consultant, sales engineer, their managers, and a sales executive. Once you get beyond that, you're paying people that really didn't close the deal. So fix that. Check that number. After that, give the reps information wherever they go. The Aberdeen Group did some research where they found that companies who use mobile as part of their incentive compensation management solution get a 4% annual improvement in sales time to productivity. That means reps get up to speed faster, they take on the new comp plan faster, they make more money. In addition, if you can automate your incentive compensation solution, that is, don't run it off of spreadsheets and have a 4 to 6 week minimum delay from activity to payment, you can actually get more reps making quota and your sales cycles are shorter. This is back to this line of sight conversation that I was having before. What you want to do is pay reps early, pay reps often. You want to pay them as close as possible to when they close the deal so that they'll go out and close another deal. So how do you know where to focus? How do you know what you can be fixing at your organization? Well, this is where you get the 2 B's, baselines and benchmarks. Baseline, you need to know where you are right now. You need to know where your company has been historically. Benchmarks, you need to know how that compares to peer companies. So let's talk about that a little bit. First, ask yourself these questions, and you should be asking yourself these questions every single quarter, not just in every 2 to 3 year reevaluation of your team. Are you getting the right type of talent? Every time somebody leaves, was it a loss you're happy with, or is it a loss that's going to hurt you? Okay. When you post a position, what kind of resumes flood into your inbox? What kind of people are checking out your LinkedIn profile to look at the job? Okay. Next, does your pay align with the business goals? And this might seem like a silly question, but remember when I was talking about, do you pay on revenue, pay on deals, or pay on margin? What is your company's business goal? Is it to grow top line? Is it to get more profitable? Or is it to grab market share? Those are 3 different measures. Whichever one of those is the primary in your organization should be the primary in the sales rep's compensation plan. What does it cost you to hit quota? And by that, I mean, what does it cost you to bring in a rep, train a rep, give them a desk, and then get them all the way to quota? What's it cost you in incentives? What does it cost you in other measures? What percentage of your reps are even making quota? And if you use spiffs, do they work? I think one of the best ways to waste money with a spiff is to launch it, celebrate it, but never look to see if it actually drove more business. I've seen plenty of spiffs, especially like when it's an add-on product spiff, where companies ran a spiff and they turned around and they never even looked to see if they sold more of that product than the same prior period. You can't do that. You've got to see if your reps are responding and if it's doing you any good. So when we're setting the baseline, when I'm talking about the historical performance, you want to be able to see what's working and where are you struggling. So you need a variety of ways of looking at this information. A variety of different graphs might be bar charts, column charts, graphs, scatter plots, or just tables of data. The screen I'm showing you here is from Exactly Analytics, which is our own tool that we use, that our clients use for looking at their data. We also let people download this information to Excel so they can manipulate it a little bit more. This gives you your baseline. You want to run it for at least a couple of years if you can, but you should also be looking at it every single quarter to see what's happening to all the movements. Don't just look at closed deals and pipeline. Look at every single factor. The idea is that, with all this data, if your reps are not making quota the way they used to, that identifies a problem. You can see which incentives are actually paying off. Is it the measurement on new clients? Is it the measurement on margin, or is it the measurement on revenue? That'll tell you how they impact things. And even looking to over underpayment, you want to start thinking about, hold it, am I paying in line with the marketplace? Being able to see where you sit with all of these questions is going to make a difference. Now, to do this, you want to benchmark, okay? You want to start comparing yourself to your peers, and you want to see, are you paying market rate? Do your top performers make the right amount of money? Not just on averages. One challenge of a lot of sales compensation survey data is they just give you an average of averages. Each company sends in an average, and then the survey provider averages those averages, and you look at that. That I already talked about too many people in the deal. You know, what is quota performance in your industry at peer companies? Do you have enough leverage? Do your rock stars make enough money if they really knock it out of the park? Please tell me you're not putting a cap in the compensation plan, because you should never do that. And then what's your turnover look like, voluntary and involuntary? So, you know, if you think about it, you should be able to go and select, you know, different peer groups, different types of companies, private versus public, different revenue bands and the like, and compare yourself to them. Make sure you're comparing yourself to the companies, the types of companies you lose good reps to, the types of companies you hire good reps from, and the types of companies you want to become, and the types of companies that are nipping at your heels. These are all the types of benchmark analysis programs you should be running to making sure you're staying on top of your sales team. This is where what I want to do is talk a little bit about exactly insights and give you an example. You know, we process 8 billion transactions every quarter, and we have collected this data of these quarterly transactions through incentive compensation plans, the $20 billion in incentive payments we've handled in just the last 2 years. We anonymized and aggregated all of that data across 11 years from a cross-section of industries to make it easy for our clients to do this type of benchmarking. So the idea is how do you compare? Because your reps are they're getting pitches from other companies to have them come on board. They want to know, how does the payout curve look at the new company versus where they are? So we want to help make that easy for you. Now, what is that going to look like? Well, here are 3 sample views from Exactly Insights. All right, at the top, I've got my target pay mix. And this just says how much of my pay is base and how much is variable. And I can look at myself versus my peers, okay? And they're at the median in the 75th percentile. It doesn't look too bad. The ratio of base salary to variable incentive is about in line. But if I actually start looking at actual variable earnings per employee, I see a problem because I'm the green bar, okay? And the green bar shows that at the 25th percentile, I pay a lot of money in variable incentives. At the 75th percentile, I pay a lot less than the market. The dark blue bar being the marketplace and the baby blue bar being the entire data set. So I've got 2 data sets versus myself in green. So I'm overpaying for low performers and I'm underpaying at high performers. That is going to make me keep bad performers, and I'm going to start losing my good performers. And if I go further, I can actually see how that is reflected in my quota attainment graph. So the same graph where I'm the green bar and the couple different market cuts are in the 2 different shades of blue, I don't have anybody on the far right-hand side of the quota attainment curve because I don't pay as well at the higher levels of performance. But I've got too many people for what I'm trying to accomplish over there at the 25th percentile, which is probably because, once again, I'm overpaying there. Yeah, there's a few more in the marketplace, but the truth is I've got a problem. I need to fix this. I've benchmarked myself, and I have a motivational problem. Now, how do I fix this? I'm going to put more juice into my compensation plan for overachievement of quota so that I can get more and more people earning those higher levels of pay that will now be more attractive to them instead of them just deciding, I've hit my numbers, I'm going to coast for the rest of the quarter or the rest of the year. So you want to motivate. First, set some goals and make sure they are measurable. I do not believe in goals that you cannot measure. So this could be, can you onboard new members faster? Okay, how long does it take a rep at your company to get up to speed to actually start producing? Next, let's get everybody on message. You need to have constant training for all of the sales organization. Marketing is spending a lot of money going out. They're buying ads. they're running webinars, they're going to trade shows, and you can do all that. But if you then have a sales rep following up on a lead and the rep's not on message with the tag that pulled that prospect into the pipeline, you're going to get a breakdown in your sales organization. Let's go try to get 5% more out of our middle performers, that frozen middle I showed earlier. Look for that. And you can do that, like I said, with mobile, with automation, and with better incentives. And then retain the top 20%. You can't afford to lose the rock stars. You need to understand and keep an eye on them. So at the same time that we're trying to move more from the middle into the top echelons, we also always want to keep on the top, an eye on the top echelons so that we don't lose them. With Exactly Insights, we've seen some great results. Our clients that use Insights have a 3 to 5% higher quota attainment. They are having great success in leveraging all this information, bringing it in to improve their quota setting, but also to keep an eye on fairness. Remember, I talked about fairness and equal opportunity earlier. Other companies are using this, looking at plan complexity and adjusting that. Keep it simple, keep it clean, keep it obvious. We don't want to overcomplicate the system, because if not, once again, that's a demotivating factor. So Exactly Corporation, we've been around for over 11 years. We are here to help you with compensation, with benchmarking, with analytics, with coaching, with measuring and quota attainment, and for quota analysis and quota setting, and we'll help you with your MBOs, management by objectives, and the like. If you have any questions, please, you can go to exactlycorp.com. Follow us on Twitter at Exactly. You can follow me at Erik Chaz. Feel free to check me out on LinkedIn. I regularly publish ideas on sales compensation and in that area, and I'm happy to help. Thanks for joining.